Hello, in this video, I'll be doing a review on my latest purchase, the RTX 3090. Well, latest purchase at the time, the RTX 3090 Xtreme Waterforce Water Block Edition by Gigabyte. And first things first, timestamps there, and you know the drill already. And someone mentioned in my previous upload and requesting for a game to be included in the video with the parameters displayed. I will do that later on in the video. And that said, by the looks of it, I think he's a foreigner. When I say foreigner, I don't think he's a Filipino. So that said, most probably I will just speak in English. Just English, please. Anyway, let's start with the goods or the pros for this GPU first. Guys, napakalupit. English. It is so malupit. It's so unbelievably powerful. Anyway, the performance is beyond words. So I'm actually made a presentation or a graphical presentation of it, and I will show it. I will show you guys the results of my benchmarking later on. And actually, as for the pros of this card, that's basically it. Its performance. Again, I don't know if I can emphasize on it enough. The performance of it is off the roof, or I know this, through the roof. And that's basically it. But as for the cons, basically there's only one as well, and it is its temperature. Not the GPU temperature nor its hotspot temperature, but rather its VRAM temperatures. Um, Actually, before buying this card, I already noticed those posts or those reviews saying that it has very high VRAM temperature. But I figured, since what I'm buying is a water block edition or water cooled edition GPU, it wouldn't really affect the temperature much, or I wouldn't have that high of a temperature considering it's water cooled, right? But lo and behold, and it's still high, incredibly high. I actually posted, if you guys aren't following it still, please follow my page, Chris Tech Rants from Facebook, and that's where I put my updates regarding my upcoming videos or future uploads. So be sure to subscribe here as well. Anyway, I posted here last April 28th in regards to my purchase of RTX 3090. The reason I posted this was because some of my friends and acquaintances are actually considering on buying this thing with the intention of using it for mining Ethereum. So I hastily posted my opinion about this card because the VRAM temps are really something you really have to consider. Um, when I first installed the GPU into the computer, installed its drivers, the works, right? And I initially did benchmarking. No, stress test. First thing I did was to stress test it, and I really wanted to use Firmark for it, but after seeing the reviews of other people in the internet, I decided to use NiceHash to stress test my card. And the VRAM, the GPU temperature, they're fine. It's in the mid 40s only. But the VRAM temperature skyrocketed to 110 degrees Celsius, and it stayed there for the whole duration. I let it alone because I'm stress testing the card, see if it breaks. Because if it breaks that easily, there's really something wrong with the card, right? So That's what I used for stress testing it. And I actually wanted to, originally my plan was to actually save the mining part of this video on the latter part, but just to get it out of the way, since it's not mining good enough, I'll show it to you first. Here is my nice hash. Let me just I will just block some of the information out. And the RTX 3090 is this one. If you could notice here, there's an option to optimize. What I've chosen right now is the manual. Basically, if you choose other options like the light, medium, high, or even the extreme, they basically go over 100 degrees Celsius, all of the other options. So what's left is the manual overclocking, or in this case, downclocking. I really had to downclock my GPU just so that I'd have a more comfortable temperature for the VRAMs. And to do that, what I'm using is Nice Hash, the one they made especially for NVIDIA video cards. So since I'm using this application, they actually advise you to use the OC Tune that comes with the Nice Hash application. Now here, if you could see, I will just point and narrate it. My temperature, the GPU block is quite good. It's showing 45 degrees. And the VRAM, it's stable at 78 degrees Celsius. But to get this number, I had to downclock my memory all the way to its minimum value of 8500 megahertz. And the clock speed of the GPU processor doesn't really matter much when it comes to mining. Well, it does, but not as much as the memory does. So in this case, I just lowered both. I lowered both the CPU, both the processor and the memory to its minimum value. So that's minus 1000 for each. And as for the power limit, I made a power limit. I did it by increments. I tried 300 watts initially. Still I'm getting about 108, 105 initially, 105 degrees Celsius initially. And then, oh, I'm sorry, at 300 watts, I'm getting 110 degrees Celsius. As I went down further, like let's say 250 watts, the VRAM temp will start at 95 degrees Celsius, but after an hour, it'll slowly creep to 110 degrees Celsius still. So that's my point. Because I have the water block edition, there's no way for air to move better, right? So most of the heat stays at the backplate, which is a bad thing. So yeah, with a lower power limit, yes, you'd have a cooler temperature, but as time passes, the temperature rises still. So I was finally able to maintain a peak memory VRAM temperature of 80 degrees Celsius at 192 watts. And it's generating me, if I'm not 50 averaging of 50 mega hash per second. So that's pretty low. My RTX 3070 is actually capable of doing 57 to 60 mega hash per second. So funny enough, after I uploaded my Facebook page review or remark regarding my video card, Linus Tech Tips actually uploaded a video that's the first, actually my friend mentioned to me that EKWB, EK water block, is actually uh, have an active backplate which will actively cool the backside of the GPU as well. And I saw Linus Tech Tips' video about it, and it's quite promising. It's quite promising, and I will actually try and wait for EK Waterblock's active backplate for my version to come out, and before I try any mining on this card. As of now, it's making 50-ish mega hash per second. Yeah, it's not bad, but I'm still not satisfied with 78 degrees Celsius VRAM temperature, uh, considering that you'd be operating the GPU non-stop. In my opinion, that temperature is still quite high. If you do further research and check other sites like Micron and some other sites, it will actually say the operating temps good until 95 degrees Celsius. But I'm just guessing that temperature, yeah, operating temperature limits 95 degrees Celsius, but I'm guessing that's intended for normal usage like 3 or 4 hours of gaming, 6 hours maybe max, or 2-3 hours of rendering videos or stuff like that. And or not even it, rendering videos is not even that graphic card dependent. But you know what I mean. The operating temperature, in my opinion, the ones they specified in their site, I think it's more on, they're referring to normal operation, not really. I don't think they had mining in mind at the time of designing this card. So again, bottom line for mining with the RTX 3090, me personally, I'd probably just wait for the EK Water Block's active backplating for my card before I start mining. Moving on to the performance side of the GPU, the benchmarking results I did. The software I used basically is the 3D Mark and Furmark. In 3D Mark, there are multiple options in there. We have TimeSpy Xtreme, TimeSpy, Port Royal, what are the others? DLSS 2.0 test and ray tracing feature test. And the first one here, in 3D Mark, by the way, it also has the default benchmarking. What that means is it uses your rig's your computer's setup as its preset, and once you click on run, it'll show better results, or quite different results than the custom one, but it's only fixed with the configuration that I have with my computer. For example, in 3D Mark, I have a display of 1440, so it will run that. And okay, the first one we have here is the default one, which has a preset at 1440p, and those are the results in FPS. If you guys want to pause to get a better view, good. And the next one's custom at 1080p. One thing about custom 1080p though, in the how I took the benchmarking, or how I set up the benchmarking, I set up a standard highest available setting, or the highest setting the program had to offer, except for one, the DLSS 2.0. The thing here is, my RTX 3070 is actually having a hard time processing 4K. for this particular test. So for me to be able to run it, I actually had to lower the preset for my 3070. So just for the record, when it comes to DLSS 2.0, my RTX 3070 is set to its lowest quality possible, while my RTX 3090 is set to the highest quality possible. But that only applies for the DLSS 2.0 test. And again, that's for the custom 1080p. And here's custom 1440p and custom 4K. And here in custom 4K, I was actually surprised when my Port Royal score is actually, when the test result came out, it only said good, opposed to excellent. Reason for that is my processor. My CPU is actually just Ryzen 5 5600X. So if you guys, some of you guys would actually want to squeeze every performance out of your card, better consider buying a better CPU as well. And also, also, I really considered doing a benchmark for 8K as well. But again, my RTX 3070 is already having a hard time with the 4K. And I did try doing an 8K benchmarking, but the data being given by my 3070 is not really that reliable, so I decided not to include it. Heads up though, RTX 3090, it's fine with it. Low on the FPS, but it's good. All things considered, it's good. And as for games, most games here is as provided by the 3D Mark application, the Battlefield 5, Apex Legends, GTA 5, Fortnite, and Red Dead Redemption 2. And I just added in here Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I tried including Control, but I decided to maybe I'll play that game later on and to make it the actual live presentation. And Shadow of the Tomb Raider, this is where it really showed its performance. Considering Shadow of the Tomb Raider has DLSS, its DLSS can handle the DLSS or renders DLSS or whatever the term is. Next, we have power consumption. In regards to peak power, not really the averaging power consumption, but just the peak power. As you can see, RTX 3090 is quite power hungry, 350 watts peak, in constantly in all results. And so this could be important in deciding the proper rating for your power supply unit. And next is GPU temperature. Do take note, average temperature, I'm using the average temperature, not the peak temperature, and it does spike from time to time, but what I considered or wrote in here is or provided in here is the average temperature in Celsius. Do take note that the water cooling that I have in here as of the moment and is a 120 by 240 radiator with fan curve set to maintain best temperature. I'm unable to maintain a specific RPM to standardize things. With the thing going on with the RTX 3090, I hope you guys understand. So I've decided to just set the fan curve to maintain best temperature I could get out of it. as you may notice, I don't think, or as the data suggests, I don't think the 240 radiators will do the trick for this one. I think you'd need a bigger radiator, at least 360 size radiator, or a thicker one with push-pull configuration maybe. And yeah, so those are the temperatures. Firm mark 4K with 8 times rendering. Um, the performance of, or the temperature of the 3070 is quite low, but again, do consider that the water block for the 3070 is better designed for it than the 3090. So do take that into consideration. And continuing, and hopefully I'd be able to finish this video now. I had some minor technical difficulties with my computer while I was playing Tomb Raider, benchmarking the computer. It hang, and after rebooting, I had no display, and LED indicators on the GPU's blinking, saying there's something wrong with the power supply, power source. At first, I thought my GPU went dead because, as some of you may know, the failure rate for RTX 3090 and 3080 is a bit not really high, but it's fairly common. And I thought I was part of that number now. So I did the most sensible thing to do, which I sat and cried. Just kidding, I didn't sit. And turned out one of the modules of my memory was faulty, and that's the one causing problems. So downside is I only have 16 gigabytes of RAM installed in my computer this time, which won't really matter in regards to gaming, but I just wanted not to have the memories a factor. That's why I prefer 32 gigabytes installed. But I don't see it being replaced anytime soon. I just have to make do with 16 as of the moment. So opening MSI Afterburner, I have it here. Let's start with, I won't be overclocking it at the first run. So only the power limit. Power limits raised to max and the temp limits raised to max. So that should be fine. And let's run Tomb Raider. Oh, and by the way, as I've mentioned, now I have 16 gigabytes, 16 gigs of RAM installed. But the numbers I showed previously, those numbers are still good, but they're on 32 gigs of RAM. This time in this game, I only have 16 installed, and resizable bar is also enabled. And yeah, let's moving on with Tomb Raider. So Tomb Raider's up, and let me just show the options real quick. HDR is enabled, DirectX is in 12 is enabled, DLSS is enabled. I hope you guys don't consider that cheating. On a 165 hertz refresh rate, and all settings are set to its max as well. And play. I'll be using this one here. Alright. I don't know if you guys could see here, but my FPS counter is here on the top right corner of the screen. And oh, before I forget, let me just reset the sensors so we'd be able to keep track of it better. So right now at idle, my computer's been running for a while now, so we could consider it already warmed up. And there you go. Let me just maximize this. And GPU temperature current is 43.1, and it already maxed at 51.6 Celsius, and memory junction temperatures maxed at 66, but currently on 60 degrees Celsius. And I'll be resetting this now. Now it's all reset, and let's get back to the game. I'll just make a first run until I die, and let's see how the FPS counter show.
Hunahan and Humchevin must have traveled through here when they were banished from
Let me open the performance
no one's
indicator.
been through here in centuries.
So, yeah. It doesn't really show the temperature in my chart here, but it is being shown here. I have another one here. Right now, GPU temperature is at 45 degrees, but the problem with the OSD, it doesn't show the memory junction temperature, which we'd be checking out later on in the sensors. Okay, here we go. Right now, I'm running 123 FPS. (143 FPS). All right. Let's see. Alright. 54 degrees, 134 FPS. So far, so good. I thought I was going to die already. This is weird. Okay. 55 degrees.
The Valley of the Monkey Gods. It's a massive fault line.
135 FPS.
Perfect place to hide if you wanted to disappear like the Monkey Twins did.
And I'm dead. So I'm guessing it's averaging 135 FPS. So that's good. And let's check the sensors.
Hunahan.
Sensors here show peaked at 56.5 degrees Celsius, and memory junctions at max temperatures at 74 degrees Celsius. And I'm actually quite lost, but the problem with memory junction temperature, as I think I've mentioned it earlier, no? The VRAMs at the back is attached to the backplate. So if you're playing like for an hour or two, you could see your VRAM temps slowly creeping higher. So just take note of that one. The highest one I've got was playing Control, where my VRAM or the memory junction temperature sat at 80 degrees Celsius initially, but it slowly crept up until 87 degrees Celsius, and no, I'm sorry, 86 degrees Celsius, and I kind of stopped there. And yeah, and moving on, now we'll be overclocking the card.
Evan must have traveled through here.
Let me just quit this first and exit. Yes. There you go. And now we'll overclock it a bit. I will open Furmark just so I'd be able to on 8K and stress test that. And just keep that going in the background. And okay, currently my memory is sitting at 9750 megahertz. Let's bump this to let's make it an even 10,000 or plus 200. That ought to be enough first. And let's apply it. Alright. Seems stable enough. Memories. The memory indicating here is 9951 as well. And temperature's good at 56. And how about my memory? Memory sitting at 78 degrees Celsius already. Let me reset this so we'd be able to monitor it better. Right now it's 78 degrees Celsius, and I'll leave it there for now. I don't want to go over 80. Operating limit of this one, if I'm not mistaken, is about 85 or 95 degrees Celsius. But me personally, I want to keep it in the low 80s. And clock, core clock, let's start with plus 25 first. Plus 25 first. And hit apply. Let's see if it hangs. Alright, my core being used right now, usage is okay. 1965. Good. And seems stable. Let's make it plus 100. 106. Let's see if that'll do. Okay, my core clock's increasing in temperature. Now it's in it's 58, 57, 58, and slowly rising. And I'm on my new case now, by the way. While I was troubleshooting the problem I had, I decided to change the case as well. And I'm actually using the Dark Force now, which I will be making a review on, so stay tuned for that video. I really like this case. I just can't stress that enough. It's really cheap as well. Or not really cheap, budget friendly. Okay, core clock now stable at 2000. Let me just add 50 more. Let's make it 147. Let's see if it'll hold. So remember earlier, we're getting peak FPS at about 145, 140, and we're averaging around 130, 135. Sometimes, even though if you did a good job, like for example now, overclock seems stable, but sometimes if you did it wrong, you'd actually notice your FPS counter going down. So you'd have to retune your overclocking. As for overclocking, do you really need to overclock your 3090? No, you don't really have to or need to, but hey, it's a free performance upgrade, right? And who wouldn't want a free upgrade or performance boost? But then again, what you really have to concern yourself about are the temperatures. Now, the memory junction's up 84 degrees Celsius this time. So, for benchmarking purposes, let's stick to this numbers. And this is pretty good. It's stable at 2010 megahertz. And it reaches the 2100 or 2075. But as memory starts to increase, the GPU will try to limit it and lower the values down. That's why it's fluctuating. So I'll keep that number or that setting there. And let me quit this here real quick. And let's check Tomb Raider again. There you go. And play. So far, so good, I suppose. Yeah, okay.
Hunahan and Hunchevan
I'll
must
just
have
use the
traveled through
OSD
when they were
here.
banished from
I won't put
Pachitan.
up the
No one's been through here in centuries.
G-force parameters anymore. It's kind of useless. And right now my FPS up 156. So that's 16 FPS increase already. My lowest is 130, 140. Alright. It did drop to 138 real quick. But now it's averaging 145 FPS. So yeah. So in regards to overclocking, right now it's 146, 156. Yeah. So overclocking's good. Temperature's holding out. It's stable at 58. I already forgot what our value was earlier. Just rewind to see that one. And let's check our temperatures. Now it's showing we peaked at 59 degrees Celsius for the GPU die, and for the memory junction 84 degrees. But again, this is the initial value for the memory junction. Again, it starts to creep higher as time passes, especially after a couple of hours. You'd notice it's slowly creeping up. So be mindful of that when you're using the 3090. So, all right. Joeor, I hope that satisfies you. And continuing on to my conclusion. Alright, for conclusion and some closing remarks. As for my RTX 3090 Waterforce Xtreme Waterforce Water Block Edition, performance, again, really nice. No one can deny that. Thermals, not so much. Personally, I really think Gigabyte could have done a much better job at it. What do I mean? Like, I really think their target audience are those folks who just want to buy this card because it looks great, and those people who doesn't really care about temperatures, which is not the case, obviously. The reason I bought this, I'm really particular in temperatures. I don't like seeing temps over 80 degrees, much more 90. So very disappointing in that regard. And as a workaround, actually this just arrived a few minutes earlier, and this will serve as my temporary workaround while waiting for a more permanent solution. I bought these from Lazada. They're copper heat sinks. I'll be placing them on top of the GPU like this, with the fins parallel to the airflow like that. And I hope it helps cool it down a bit. And I'll be posting a new video about this, how it turns out. But generally the idea is I'd put the heat sinks on top of it, and if that's not enough, I'll be putting a very small fan on top of these heat sinks, and hope that works. Again, I'll be updating you guys about this. And as I've mentioned, for the more permanent solution, EK Water Block actually has a thing going on now. EK Water Block's active backplate, they call it. Bixby and Barrow are actually, I think they already have one as well. Bixby actually calls theirs as active backplane. But anyway, I'll be waiting for that to arrive for a more permanent solution for this one. So just imagine, I bought this card just so I'd have good thermal performance. As it turns out, I'd have to buy a backplate from EK, a GPU water block from EK, just to fix that thermal issue. Why? I don't think the active backplate from EK will be compatible with a card, with this card here. So I'd be forced to buy the GPU water block and replace the existing one here, buy the active backplate, and the water blocks $150. The active backplate another $150. So I'd be spending another $300 just to fix it. Anyway, so there you go. If you guys are planning on buying this particular version, I won't recommend it. What I do recommend is just buy a regular 1390 with the air cooled version. Why? At least in that type of cooling solution, you'd have passive cooling for the back plate as well, because of course the fans at the front side of the card is creating air circulation, creating passive cooling for the back plate. Whereas this one here, water block, the air kind of is kind of stagnant at the back plate, which makes the temperature creep up. So there you go. I personally recommend just buy the air cooled one. And if you really wanna build yourself a water loop, then buy a separate GPU block and an active backplate. In that way, in case your pump fails or there's something wrong with the loop, you could just simply remove the blocks and reinstall the air coolers, and you'd have a spare handy. So that'll be a good idea there. And overclocking, is it necessary for this card? Absolutely not. But would you wanna have a free upgrade, a few FPS upgrade for free? Definitely. If you wanna, go and overclock it. No one's stopping you. And the card actually has very good design. Like you'd actually notice, as we've done earlier, we noticed our temps rising. That's pretty much the limit of it. So it's pretty safe to do with these cards. And yeah, as for the case, I'd be uploading a video about this dark flash case pretty soon, and the build I'm working on. Stay tuned for that one. And I really hope this video helps someone decide to buy or not to buy, or which version to buy. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the alert button as well, and see you in the next